In a small seaside town, surrounded by dense forests and secrets, there lived a young artist named Alex. He was introverted, preferred solitude, and found inspiration in nature. His favorite place was an old pier, where he had a stunning view of the sea. Alex was tall and slender, with thick dark hair and deep blue eyes that reflected his artist's soul. His paintings were always full of emotions and melancholy, which he tried to express through his works. One evening, when the sun was already beginning to set over the horizon, Alex was sitting on the pier and drawing another sunset. Suddenly, he noticed a girl walking along the shore. She looked like someone from his paintings, slender, with long blonde hair that waved in the wind. Her name was Elizabeth. She had come to the sea to find comfort and peace after a hard day. Elizabeth noticed Alex and came closer. She was fascinated by his work and decided to speak to him. Her voice was soft and melodious, and her eyes were bright and shining like stars in the night sky. They started chatting and immediately found common topics of conversation. Elizabeth turned out to be an interesting conversationalist who loved history and mysticism, which attracted Alex even more. After that first meeting on the pier, Alex and Elizabeth began to spend more time together. They walked along the coast, discussed art, literature, and the mysteries of the world. Their conversations often lasted late into the night, and every day they learned something new about each other. One day, during one of these walks, Elizabeth told Alex about an old villa in the woods near the cemetery. She explained that the place was connected to her ancestors, and that perhaps it was where he could find inspiration for his paintings. Alex gladly agreed, because he trusted her intuition and was ready for any adventure. Elizabeth led him confidently down the path. They walked along narrow paths through thickets and trees. On the way, she told Alex that the ancestral cemetery was not far from the villa, and they could visit it. Soon they came to a small clearing where an old abandoned cemetery stood. The graves were covered with moss and grass, and the tombstones looked ancient and mysterious. The atmosphere around them was dark and mysterious. Elizabeth told Alex that this was her ancestral cemetery, and many of her family members were buried here. They began to study the headstones, read the epitaphs, and discussed the stories that might be behind these ancient graves. Suddenly they noticed that away from the cemetery, in the shade of the trees, there was an old stone path leading deep into the forest. Elizabeth looked at Alex and, smiling mysteriously, suggested they follow it. She said that the path might lead to the very villa of her ancestors. As Alex and Elizabeth approached the villa, a strange feeling of unease and curiosity came over them. The building was grand, but long abandoned, with broken windows and moss-covered walls. The front door creaked when they opened it, and everything inside was covered in dust and cobwebs. Inside, the house looked even darker. Huge halls with high ceilings, old furniture covered with fabrics, and portraits of Elizabeth's ancestors on the walls created an atmosphere of abandonment and mystery. Alex felt a chill and fear creeping through him. It seemed to him that the shadows around him came to life and whispered ancient incantations. But despite this, he was attracted by the mystery associated with the house, and he continued to explore it with Elizabeth. They discovered an old diary that belonged to her ancestor. It described the rituals and spells the witch had used to put a curse on their family. The curse brought misfortune and loss to all her ancestors. They died under mysterious circumstances, and now their souls wander in this house. The diary also mentioned a way to lift the curse, but that way required a great sacrifice. When evening came, Alex and Elizabeth decided to stay overnight in the villa. They found an old bedroom with a huge bed and settled down for the night. During the night, Alex woke up from a terrible nightmare. He felt cold sweat on his forehead and heard strange sounds coming from the next room. Alex got up and went to the sound. When he entered the room, he saw Elizabeth standing in front of the mirror. In her reflection, he saw a figure that didn't look human. An ancient darkness glowed in her eyes, and he realized she was not who she said she was. Trying not to show it, Alex quietly returned to the bedroom and went back to bed. He tried to sleep, but thoughts of Elizabeth's strange appearance kept him awake all night. When morning came, Alex felt tired and restless after a night full of nightmares and disturbing thoughts about what he had seen. He decided not to tell Elizabeth about his observations so as not to alarm her. Instead, he continued exploring the villa alone. hoping to find answers to his questions. Alex started with the large halls and scrutinized every corner. In one of the rooms, he found an old map, on which all the secret rooms and passages were marked. Following the map, Alex found many hidden rooms filled with ancient artifacts and mystical symbols. In one of these rooms, he came across an old altar with notes left by Elizabeth's ancestors. These notes described rituals and spells used to communicate with otherworldly forces. Alex began to realize more and more that Elizabeth's family was deeply involved in the occult and magic. The more Alex found, the more fear and anxiety enveloped him. He realized that the villa and its inhabitants hid many secrets, and that Elizabeth's connection to this darkness was much deeper than he could imagine. Despite this, he was still determined to help her get rid of the curse and free her soul. After a long day of research, Alex returned to Elizabeth and began to cautiously question her about the past. Elizabeth confessed that her family had been subject to a curse placed by a witch many years ago. The curse had bound their souls to this place, and they couldn't leave until they found true love. Elizabeth revealed that she had died long ago, and her soul was imprisoned in this house. Elizabeth explained that breaking the curse required an ancient ritual that could only be performed on the night of the full moon. They needed to find magical artifacts hidden in various corners of the house and recite ancient spells. Alex agreed to help her despite the dangers. They began their search for the magical artifacts together. Each artifact was hidden in carefully guarded areas of the villa, and finding them required solving many riddles and traps. Alex and Elizabeth worked as a team, relying on each other in difficult moments. Despite the fear and danger, their bond grew stronger with each artifact they found. When they finally collected all the necessary artifacts, on the appointed night, when the moon illuminated the sky, Alex and Elizabeth started preparing for the ritual. They lit candles, arranging them around the perimeter of the hall, and placed the magical artifacts they had found in the center. There was a sense of tension in the air, as if the house itself was preparing for the upcoming event. Elizabeth began to recite ancient incantations, and at that moment, the shadows around them came to life. They began to dance in an ominous dance, encompassing the room with the dark figures of Elizabeth's ancestors. Alex felt the cold hands of the shadows touching his skin, but he did not let go of Elizabeth's hand. Alex closed his eyes and said words of love, hoping that it would help to break the curse. Elizabeth followed his example, and together they repeated the incantations. Suddenly, the house shook even more violently, and the ominous figures began to disappear one by one. As the last ancestor dissolved into thin air, the room lit up with a bright light, and the shadows disappeared. The curse was broken, and Elizabeth's spirit was free. She turned to Alex, her eyes glowing with gratitude and love. She thanked him for his bravery and loyalty, and their hands touched one last time. Alex felt her spirit fading away, leaving behind warmth and light. He realized that he had helped Elizabeth find peace and be free from the curse. He was left alone in an empty house, but his heart was filled with memories of that mysterious night and the girl who taught him true love, despite all the obstacles. After returning to his normal life, Alex continued to paint, and his paintings became even more emotional and profound. Each of his works reflected the story of love and sacrifice he had experienced with Elizabeth. Her image remained in his heart forever, inspiring him to new creative achievements.